You know, when I was young, my family didn't know any better. We just kind of hacked the meat off and cooked it in hams or big chunks. But there's a lot better way to remove the meat from a deer. I like to work on a deer hanging up, and I start on what's called the ball roast, the front part of the ham. One thing that makes your job a lot easier is having a sharp knife and keeping it sharp. So you don't want to be digging into a bone. You're going to fillet the meat off, not putting the blade of your knife right on the bone. I start by removing the ball roast, and I feel where the end of the white connective tissue and the meat starts and make an incision there, just going in deep enough and stopping right before I hit the femur bone, because that would dull your knife. I simply go down the edge of the femur bone, but not digging into it with my knife. And muscle groups will just separate themselves. I go down to the end of that muscle, leaving some of the connective tissue on the deer. There's no need, because I'll just have to cut it off once I get inside. And with that simple cut, I have a perfect ball roast that Miss Tracy likes to make barbecue out of. Next, I'm going to remove what's called the rump roast. And again, I'm going to follow the layer of muscle. Right here, there's a bunch of connective tissue. Your family doesn't want to eat that anyway, so I'm going to follow the muscle line right through here, cutting down to the femur, and then go right in here at the hip joint and free the meat up from the bone. There's nowhere on a whitetail you need a 6 or 10-inch blade. A little short blade is easier to handle, less likely to jab yourself on the other side, and you're not making incisions deep through the meat. That's just another area you want to clean up later. After I freed the rump roast down both sides, I simply go in right by the edge of the femur, freeing it right here, so I'll be able to peel it off. Once I've freed the rump roast from the femur and the hip bone, I simply get behind it and pull back, and it will kind of separate itself naturally, exposing where I need to make an additional little cut to free it from the bone. And I can just free it up right on the muscle group there. And what you end up with is one pure piece of meat, the big rump roast, without any connective tissue or ligaments going through it. Pure meat. Doesn't get any better at any store. Simply laid the rump roast back, and I'm going right between the connective tissue and another muscle group. It comes out with a great big large roast that I'll just trim up once we get inside, be ready to put in the freezer. Removing the rump roast accomplishes two objectives. First, it exposes this interior muscle that's as pure as a tenderloin. No connective tissue in it and super tender. It's actually shaped like a tenderloin. I call it the hidden tenderloin. I simply take my knife, follow the connective tissue very carefully around, and fillet it out. When finished, you can see it's the same shape, same muscle texture as a tenderloin. Getting 4 tenderloins out of a deer instead of 2, well, that's a big bonus in my book. Of course, the lymphatic system collects stuff the deer is trying to get rid of, any infections or bacteria that it wants to get out of the body. So if you cook the whole ham as one piece, you're going to, or your family is going to eat this very large lymph node and the whole lymph system going through there. But by exposing the muscles, it's easy just to take that out and discard it. The lymph node in the ham is very large and full of ugly stuff you don't want to put in your body. But it's easy just to expose it, trim it out, and save the best meat for your family. With the lymphatic system removed from the ham, I follow the muscle line once again down to the femur, fillet down the edge of the femur. This muscle will simply come off very easily, and you're going to go deep because it fits way up in the pelvic socket there, the pelvic girdle, and you can leave some really good meat there, but by simply following the muscle line in, see how it's peeling off this secondary muscle here. You can see where it separates right here. It comes out as a large, pure roast. And I'll simply go inside, trim off this sheath of connective tissue, and have pure meat to vacuum seal for my family to enjoy this winter. There's a nice muscle interior to the ham right up against the pelvic girdle that is great for stew meat or to put in the hamburger bowl of all the meat you're going to grind up for hamburger. And by following again the layers of connective tissue, you'll come out with pure meat instead of grinding up all that connective tissue, which can give the flavor of wild game or a tainted taste that some families don't enjoy. After I've removed the major muscles, I can come back and remove the minor leg muscles, put them in the hamburger bowl for the grinder. Next, I progress down to the back straps. The big loin on the outside, the tenderloins are on the inside. I simply take my knife right along the edge of the phalanges or the top of the spine coming up and hug that bone because I don't want to waste any of this loin meat. I do the same process going down all the way to the neck. Then I cut right where I left off from removing the ham muscles and carefully start peeling that back away from the ribs. Once I've made the incision along the spine, I just start filleting the back strap off of the ribs, careful not to waste any of that great meat. At this point, I often go ahead and remove the large connective tissue, or what the Native Americans called sinew, that they would back their bows with. You follow this down to where it simply runs out and gets very small at the end, saving every last inch of that back strap. Little back strap goes a long ways when you tell Mama you got to buy that new gun or bow for next bow season, because she's going to want more of this in her freezer. So we removed the loin or the back strap. Now we want these tenderloins, the prize cut of all deer. You know, if the deer's healthy, there'll be some fat on the top. Here's a lymph node right here. These little dark things often cause people to have questions. Those are simply little pools of collected blood that slide out of the system here and there, and the lymph system will return it. I've simply trimmed this sheath muscle down so I could get better access to the tenderloin. The tenderloin goes much higher than a lot of people realize, and they cut it off here, leaving 2 to 3 inches of prize meat in the carcass that goes to the gut pile. At this point, I just go ahead and remove some of that fat and lymph nodes from the outside so it never makes it into the cooler or goes into the house. Simply get it started and tug a little bit, and it'll come right off, exposing pure tenderloin. You can see the bottom of the tenderloin right here, and I'm going to start working it and just peel it out. Pure, hormone-free tenderloin. Probably worth about $5,000 a pound. I think my wife will let me get a new 4-wheel drive pickup just for that. It's important to know on the shoulder that there's not a bone-to-bone connection. The shoulder is not connected to the rest of the skeleton through a socket. So you simply can take your knife, once again follow the major muscle group on the inside, and the whole shoulder will come off in your hand. You can see that I'm just separating the major muscle group here, following up the easy line, right around the top of the shoulder bone, because there's no bone-to-bone connection here. And you can see where we've already removed the tenderloin right here. And there's the whole shoulder without ever putting my knife blade on a bone. You can cut through here with your knife and find the middle of the socket, but you stand a chance of dulling your knife. I typically just take a meat saw, cut this off right here, and this whole slab can go in a crock pot with some potatoes and onions and make a great venison stew. I'm going to remove these last few chunks of meat for the hamburger grinder. If you like this kind of information, check out our weekly show at www.GrowingDeer.tv. New episode every week. If you want daily updates, go to us on Facebook or Twitter. Hope you have a chance to enjoy creation this week, and most importantly, slow down and listen to what the Creator is saying to you.